Jackson says, I've been watching a lot of old JCP lately. Any stories on guys like Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, Pez Watley, Magnum TA, or the Midnight or Rock and Roll Express? You spent some time with some of those folks. Any fun stories for those guys?
Magnum TA is a great one. When Magnum first started in the business, he came to San Antonio and was, I forget who was booking, may have been Tully at the time or Buck or somebody, I don't know. But I remember Magnum coming. Eric Embry was in the territory. My brother Tom was in the territory. And what I remember about Magnum was he had this huge Samsonite bag and came around. But from day one, Terry Allen would get to the buildings early and get whoever he could get to get into the ring with him and help teach him. And he was a sponge. He wanted to be in the business. He wanted to be the best in the business and would work his ass off, man, just all day and all night, and always ask questions. And that's when you can tell somebody that is dedicated and really wants to do this. And that was Magnum TA. So to see him grow the way that he did, he left, he went back to Florida, then he came to Watts before he went to Crockett. And Watts really, man, put him with Mr. Wrestling 2. And I'm not a big Wrestling 2 fan. I thought, I to this day, I don't see how Wrestling 2 got over. But he did. So, kudos to him. He knew what he was doing. I just didn't care for the human being behind the mask, but it was Magnum TA and Wrestling 2 is a tag team. So every night, Magnum is in there with an old pro telling him what to do and what not to do and critiquing his work. And then they split up and he worked with 2. And that was, a whole brand new education. So Terry was willing to put the work in. And when he hit, deserved everything he got, man, because he fought hard for it. He busted his ass and is a good guy. So you applaud that. Horrible tragedy, with the accident that took him out of the business in the ring. But he was a guy that really, busted his ass and deserved everything that he got because he worked for it. The Midnight Express, they started in Mid-South with Jim Cornette and had a program with Wrestling 2 and Magnum TA, So this is Cornette's first really big break. I would also say it was Bobby's first big break. Dennis had worked territories before that, and Dennis was the old grizzled vet. But, man, they were a magnificent tag team that just the 3 of them traveled together, ate together, slept together, everything. It was constant and tremendous team that just you saw them, the sum of their parts, it was like they were great as a team. If you were to split them up individually, your star is going to be Cornette because he could talk. Bobby couldn't talk. Bobby could just work. Dennis could talk but didn't want to talk. But they were great workers, and they were a great tag team. Rock and Roll Express, man. Rock and Roll Express were teamed, in my opinion, from what I grew up in a big man territory in Texas. And all of a sudden you have these little people, and you look at it. Robert Gibson wasn't small. Ricky was small, but in comparison to Nikolai Volkov and Barry Darsow and Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Butch Reed, they were small. And that's what you're accustomed to. You're accustomed to the Bruiser Brodies. And all of a sudden, these little fellas come in here and all of a sudden, what the hell is this? But what the Rock and Roll Express did that was unique was they were positioned as tag team specialists. As a team, they were unbeatable. Because they knew that if you were to isolate Ricky or isolate Robert, that one-on-one, they may not have been as good, but as a team, they couldn't be beat. And they proved it by putting them against Darsow and Nikolai Volkov, 2 big monsters, Russian monsters, okay? And Ricky and Robert beat them with tag team moves, double teaming, the double drop kick, double whips, the double backdrops, and all this. Everything was a tag team maneuver. And that was something that was different because we had never really had a tag team. You had tag team matches, but there's one guy teaming with another guy for a reason. You didn't have tag teams, at least in Texas. And it was, to me, that was just ingenious, the way that was done. And my hat's off to Bill Dundee and Bill Watts for the way that was orchestrated, because it made it believable. And you got somebody that you could get behind, and it brought in the younger demographic because they were young, came out to rock and roll music. And the rest, as I say, is history.
Do you think Vince would have seen money in Magnum TA in an alternate universe if the accident doesn't happen, Crockett goes down, he's got an opportunity to sign again with Ted Turner in WCW or take a meeting with Vince? Do you think Vince would have seen money in Magnum in the WWE?
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, Magnum had money all over him. Magnum had charisma. So just standing there, you like Magnum. So he was a man's man. Plus, all the women loved him because he looked like Tom Selleck with a better body, and he could go. So there was nothing to dislike about Magnum. So he had all the elements of a superstar.
That era of the WWF was really known for so many great managers too. It's hard to imagine that Jim Cornette wouldn't have been a big hit there as one of the mouthpieces, stable for Vince. Is there an alternate universe where the Midnight Express were lighting things up, say 85 to 90 in the WWE?
I definitely think they could have been a big hit in the WWF at that time. And look, Cornette came in and did great with Yokozuna. And, he did have his time there, and I thought he did an excellent job.
I just think when he was there, it was kind of a down period for the WWE. But if he could have been there for the boom, man, that would have been something else.
Would have been great.
Let's do a question here from Trill Mexican 305. What a great name that is. What moment did he share? He is you, pal. With Eddie Guerrero the night he won the WWE Championship at No Way Out 2004. Do you remember that night?
Very well.
Talk to us about it.
Eddie came back, and it was very personal to Eddie to be the champion and to know that, okay, all this is on you now. So Eddie coming back, man, it was just, we hugged each other and cried because it was culmination of so many people telling him he'll never make it and he was not going to do it. And, no, Eddie, you're a fuck up. You're a drug addict. You can't do this. You're too small. And in my head, I go back to when they were the Love Machines, Art Barr and Eddie in Mexico. I just looked at him, actually both of them, but more so Eddie, and because he was Latino. That I go, man, this guy's a star. This guy will be a mega star. And I always believed that Eddie could be and would be the man one day. And he did. And it was just a very emotional moment because I'd been with Eddie through a lot of his drug stuff and everything, and always supported him and just let him know, hey, I'm here, whatever. And that was, there was a friendship there that it's like you did it, and from Chavo and Hector and those guys that I love to death, that Tom and I were kind of honorary Guerreros and had a friendship with all those guys, and it was just it was special. It was special. It was like a member of the family finally making it, and getting that nod. That was a big deal.